Hello and greetings, I'm the Political Ferret, and let's talk about the deep state. There are some explanation videos about the deep state out there, but what bugs me with them is that most of them are very specific, mostly about the United States, and the others are batshit crazy conspiracy theories. So let's hop into that, and for those of you who don't have a lot of time, in a nutshell and in 1 minute, is this an issue that only America has to deal with? Oh, hell no. Is the deep state per se bad? No, not really, but it's also not really good either. So what is it then? Well, the deep state is, in a nutshell, just a bunch of people with political power and political goals and connections to people who have power and the will to use it. But you as a citizen have more or less no power to get rid of them. And that's the deep state, in a nutshell. So let's go into detail. Is this true for the United States? Yes, of course. And it's also true for Uganda. Is this a bad thing to have a deep state? No, not really. You see, nobody rules alone. It's not since, say, Trump is in office, he does all this little stuff that governments do. I mean, does he go out and collect taxes? No, of course not. And he doesn't write forms. He has people to do that for him. And the thing is, the same guys who did this did the same things under Obama. And I guess a lot of them did it way before that. No government can replace the whole state apparatus. I mean, the United States employs, and that's mind-blowing, 22 million people, and that's about double of people employed in the manufacturing in the United States. So, let's go away from the United States, okay? To get a better look on the whole concept, just take a second, pick a nation with a government, and think about them, because it's true for them as well. Imagine there's this government, and it might be a monarchy, a democracy, a dictatorship, you name it, takes power, legal or not, doesn't matter, and puts the whole bureaucratic apparatus on the streets and put in loyal people. And I tell you, that's impossible to do. And those who try to do it learn the hard way that this is absolutely stupid and can't be done. You see, the government consists to 90% of people who you can't get rid as a citizen. But 90% of them just do their jobs. And they also don't care all that much. They give out the form A33 and collect it back and play solitaire and whatever they do. And this is true all over the globe. These guys are just wheels in a machine. They do their jobs, and their jobs don't change with the new administration. They don't care, you don't care, nobody cares. So are these guys part of the deep state? Not really, because they don't have really big political goals and they don't have power. And you need both to play in Team Deep State. Those who have power and the will to use it and the connection who help them, those bunch make the deep state. And is this a new phenomenon? No, absolutely not. I mean, go back to the times of kings and empires. If one king took over the throne by bigger army diplomacy, do you think he would have replaced the little tax collector? Of course not. He replaced at best the boss of the collector. You see, this is what new leaders do. They replace the bosses of those guys who keep the wheels turning. But you don't get all of them. The thing is, the highest person in this hierarchy, you can't replace in this particular hierarchy. Those guys who know their jobs and know the rules and maneuver the streams of politics since decades, those have often way more real power than their bosses. And often they have an agenda. So this is the deep state then, the top level bureaucrats. Yeah, well, they are an important part of this, yes, of course. But that's not all. Because here's the thing. I said that you need to have political power. I did not say that you have to be part of the state, to be in the deep state. You don't have to be in the organization chart of the government. So let's say you're a banker and the king owns you a lot of gold. Then you have power over him. You can go to the king and say, "Hey king, just forget about 1/5 of the money you owe me, dude. But can you do me a favor? And, well, I suggest this all stays in this very room, okay?" So you can influence politics with money. And people did this in all history. And it doesn't matter if this kind of government we are talking about was a monarchy or a dictatorship or whatever. Mostly these guys do this for their own gain, and that means mostly money. But some of them are different. And those are guys who have a lot of money and influence and use this for ideological reasons. But I would say they are just an exception, not a rule. So, is the deep state a place where guys in dark robes meet up and worship the devil? No, that's absolutely stupid to say. The deep state is, like the state, not really a monolithic block. It's a collection of individuals with certain controls over the steering wheels of the government, the state, power, and so on. And they always existed, but with various degrees on influence. In some states, the deep state has no power, and in other states, it has all the power. And should they have power? Well, that depends on how incompetent your government is and what's your perspective. I mean, you could argue that in the occupation of France by the Germans in the Second World War, the governments of Vichy France were pro-Germany, but quite a lot of the structure below that worked in a different direction. And I really can't say that this was a bad thing. The deep state is not even a parasite, and it's not a secret organization, and it's not really a conspiracy. Especially in America, people are screaming, the deep state, that's the State Department, no, it's the CFR, no, it's the Illuminati, and that's stupid and misses the point. The idea that you can find the deep state and kill it is just ludicrous. You can reduce the influence in shining a light on them, because transparency is the biggest enemy for someone who wants to stay hidden. But a deep state is something every state has, and it has one particular benefit. It tends to act stabilizing in most cases. As long as people who form up the deep state have certain power over the state, they just use it to get rich. And yeah, they play a bit social engineering. But if you destroy these structures, they're still rich and powerful and still want to have power. And even if you kill them all, the next bunch of them is the same as before. And if you cut them out from power and out from the access to the state and so on, they construct revolutions and they get back to power. And if you do that, and they did this in the past, that's always a shit hits the fan scenario. Look, for example, to the media. They are an important part of the deep state and the whole mechanism around it. Partly because the bosses of these outlets are part of this group, with power, with money, with ideas, and so on. Partly because they are an important tool to control the masses. And from my point of view, they are just an important tool and get paid pretty well for doing this whole control part. But whatever. But what happens when they are gone? There will be an honest media if the mainstream media is replaced by the alternative media. Because honesty brings the people from the mainstream media to the alternative. But give it one generation and the new media will act as the old did. Because power corrupts always. The only way to get rid of the deep state is getting rid of governments. If you transfer the power from the state back to the people, the deep state shrinks, of course. If you take all the power from the people and give all to the state, you will have the biggest shadow government and the deepest state you can imagine. The only difference between this and now is that in this last case, the deep state don't even try to hide anymore. I mean, look to North Korea. To all of you who are screaming that Trump could kill the deep state in America, I would suggest to calm down. Because I don't think anyone could do that. But it's absolutely a good thing that people are starting to get familiar with these terms and just consider that it is possible that the state, although very powerful, is a dwarf compared to the real superpowers, to those with the real might, such as the military-industrial complex and Wall Street. Slowly but surely, people start to understand that our governments have debt instead of money and therefore commitments instead of power. The West now is ruled by an oligarchy of rich, bored old men. And what do they want? I mean, I really don't know it, but I would bet they just want our best. Our money.